2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. But realize this, that in the last days, difficult times will come. In the last days. He's talking about the days that are leading up to the rapture. Now, you might think, well, that would be like the last week before the rapture happens. No, the last days started when the Spirit of God was poured out on the day of Pentecost, and everything is moving towards the return of Jesus. Isn't that right? So we are certainly headed in that direction of the rapture. And he says, realize this. The Greek word ginosko, and it means be aware, perceive, and be resolved to this. The word difficult or perilous times is the Greek word kalepos, and it means that which reduces your strength. Oh, how many people are losing strength in these days because of what has come upon the earth? That they are getting so drained and weary. First of all, they probably sit in front of the news reports for 3 or 4 hours at nighttime, and it's just draining them to hear all the stuff that's going on around the world. Perilous, difficult times come, reducing your strength. These are dangerous times, and these are fierce times. Amen. The Amplified Bible says, understand this, that in the last days will come and set in perilous times of great stress and trouble, hard to deal with and hard to bear. Hard to deal with and hard to bear. Not impossible, but hard to deal with and hard to bear. Especially if you're trying to do it in your own self. This is why the Bible teaches us that we are to live by faith, so that by faith we can access grace, because troubled times coming. Now, we can look at today and say, man, these are really troubled times. Wait for 10 years from now. 5 years from now, it's going to be even more troubled. But if you don't start to learn to live by faith now, the trouble will overtake you. Amen. Why is there troubled times like this coming on the earth? Verse 2. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power. Avoid such men as these, for among them are those who enter into households and captivate weak women, weighed down with sins, led on by various impulses, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, so these men also oppose the truth. Men of depraved mind, rejected in regard to the faith. Well, what is all of this? It's just sin increasing on the earth. It shouldn't be a surprise. It's just sin increasing on the earth. It is the dominion and ruling power of sin that is increasing. And here's the deal. Here is the deal. As society continues to set its approval on sin, whether it's voted on by many of the church that will vote for sin, which is really the worst part of all of this. But as society will set its approval on sin and make sin law, it is producing hard, stressful, difficult times on the earth. Because it is appropriating and approving sin. And sin produces hard. God is not hard. God is not a taskmaster. Sin is the hardest taskmaster that there is. So here's the whole thing. We were introduced to grace by faith. We are to grow in grace and let grace reign through righteousness in our life, bringing the life and nature or life as God has life into our own life. Isn't that right? And then because of sin, there is stress and precious, difficult, perilous times upon the earth. Now, we do not usually, and this is why I said you don't really know where we're going. You don't usually view stress and pressure as sin, do you? No, you just view it as, I'm having a hard time. Things aren't going right. I'm having one of those days. Oh man, I wish this would turn around pretty quick. But yet the pressures, the difficult times, the troubles are the very effect of sin. Now that doesn't mean that you're in sin, but it means that sin is on the earth. The pressures, the difficult times, the troubles, the perilous times is the manifestations of sin. It's what's being produced on the earth. It is sin's effect, and that stress and pressure is very simply sin trying to press its way into your life. Have you ever made that statement? I'd do anything to get this pressure off of me. And that's really when you open yourself up to going the wrong way. Huh? Amen. Sin is trying to work its way into our life. As sin in the earth increases, so do the pressures, so do the stresses. But for us that will live in righteousness, grace abounds all the more.